Perfect. Salute, and welcome. Welcome back to the Black Ocean. Now, so we're getting deep in with your host, the one and only Great Black Shark. And I hope everyone is having a great weekend so far. I definitely am. So I wish that for you all as well. I hope your families are all doing well. But now, ladies and gentlemen, yet again, it is time for us to visit the children. Yes, we must examine the culture of these children, not children. I said children. Fact of business. Hold on. In case y'all, in case you're new here and you don't know which children I'm talking about, let me just go ahead and remind everybody, okay? Because I should have had this up here already so that nobody's confused on exactly which children that we're talking about. Because, they're still irate about it. Oh, they whining and crying. But see, we must teach you a lesson, white supremacists. You have to learn when to stay out black folks' business. Because now that you have decided to interject your nose over here, especially during Black History Month, that was a cardinal sin. You shouldn't have done that. Now we got a series over here dedicated strictly to you. Yes, we do. These are the children we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, you know what one had the nerve to tell me about this image that you see on your screen? That's reverse racism. White people don't look like that. I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, you're not going to conflate what racism is. Racism is prejudice plus power. So no matter how much fun that I have mocking you and you little anti-black racist, because listen, I don't pick on regular white people. I just pick on the white supremacists that start stuff with us. And see, you know what's funny, family? It's funny how they can say the most vile and hateful things about black people, but as soon as we clap back, it's a bridge too far. Well, no white supremacists. If you were regular white people, I wouldn't bother you at all. Don't have a problem with you. When you want to be an anti-black racist and a white supremacist, this is what you get. So this is really what y'all look like. I mean, come on now. Listen, let me tell you something. In case you hadn't figured this out, white supremacists, don't keep talking about this image that I use up here because I'm going to keep using it. And look, I keep telling y'all seen what I'm capable of doing with thumbnails and other things. I am a beast when it comes to this roast game. I will upgrade this image. I can do far worse than this. If you think this little piece of bread with this mayonnaise face on it is bad, keep playing with me now. You know what? Back to business. I'm probably going to start upgrading because, see, y'all should have just leave it alone. You asked for this. We giving you this series that you deserve, so you're going to have it. So, So I guess I'm going to have to upgrade, family, since they don't know when to just be quiet. Yeah. So just be looking for some upgrades to Children of the Chalk. We got theme songs and everything. See, I be trying to hold back with the clowning, because I know how I am. Once I get started, I'm very artistic. Okay, I'm very artistic. I will make an art form of clowning you white supremacists. You know I'm capable of doing it. This ain't nothing yet. So just hey, listen, man. Learn to leave black folks alone, online and offline. We don't ever go where you are. Isn't that fascinating, family? They can't stand us, so they claim on one instance. But they have to be where we are, online and offline. Have y'all ever just stopped and think about that? How asinine that is. See, things that I can't stand and I hate, I don't want nothing to do with you. I want to be as far away from any person, place, or thing that I can't stand. Not them. Oh boy, see, that goes to show you how demonically schizophrenic they are. But I digress. We're going to examine some of their most problematic culture here tonight, yet again. So before we get into that, though, let me mind my manners and scroll up and greet my esteemed guests joining us over here tonight. I see the good sister Patricia Slade in the building. I see Patricia Jenkins, the awesomely intelligent librarian. The good sister Sam Ham. Welcome to you, good sister. V-Moss being the fabulous ladies in the house. My good brother Diesel Mike on the highways and byways out there. Black Manta 777 in the house. I see Sister Stun Z is joining us. Josh Norris is in the building. William McKinley is joining us. Let's see. Scroll on down. I see Sandra Evers in here. Donna C is joining us. Tuesday Woke in the building. Mrs. L, salute to you and your whole household, your husband and everybody. Only Pamela's way in the building. Seven Scales is in the building. Mongo Slade is joining us. Let's see. Make sure I don't miss anybody. A little country lamb. I see you. The sister of the zealous approach with Zola. Sister, if you have a channel, do you do content? Hey, drop your channel in here if you do content, sister. Hey, you know, I'm going to have to check that out if you do that. And I ask because that name seems like you might be a content creator. But if you do, drop your channel in here. Let people check you out. I see the good brother Cool Keys in here. Welcome, sister. Tia to you. Goddess Navi in the fabulous row. What's going on, sister? And I see GB King Harris in here. Salute to you and welcome to everybody that'll be joining us in attendance here tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm clowning them, but we actually got some serious subject matter to discuss here because, see, these children, oh man, we see that, you know, they're actually responsible for the greater majority of their problems in America, okay, and really around the world because, see, instead of trying to produce justice, they believe in coddling, you know, their criminals, okay? We just got to call that what it is. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started breaking some things down. And something caught my attention that was quite interesting. Oh, yeah, I got to share this with you all because, see, I don't know how many of you follow me on X or how many of you actually use X. I know not everybody does. But if you do, I got to share some things with you that I saw of interest. And I've seen some people covering this. So I want to read you something. Now, this is very important. First of all, everybody let me know if you can hear me okay, if you can see the image on the screen clearly. If not, we shall get all of that adjusted accordingly. You know, they love to harass this channel because it's educational content over here. Even though we do crack jokes from time to time, we make sure we teach our people things. And, you know, you're not supposed to do that as a black person. So I'll wait for confirmation in the chat to see if everybody can hear and see the image okay. If not, let me know, and I shall make the proper adjustment to get that taken care of. Salute to the good sister, some chick named Star, my first sergeant for the cash out. Thank you very much, my sister. All right, looks like people can see everything. All right, cool, great. So this is why this is important, because it fits right into what we're talking about here tonight. Since old Killer Kyle Rittenhouse, we're going to call him what he is, his people are turning on him. Oh, boy. See, let me tell you something. I posted a quote a while back from the great strategist and military mind Sun Tzu, okay? And when there's confusion amongst your enemies, okay, or they're quarreling each other, do not interfere, okay? Do not interfere, but you take notes. That's what you do because, see, when two adversaries are at each other's throats that can't stand you, do not get in the middle. You get your pen and pad out and you take notes because they're going to expose their weaknesses when they do that. So in white supremacist land, or as I call it, white conda, Kyle Rittenhouse's supporters are turning on him. Let's read this tweet, shall we? Excuse me. This is from a David Hancock. Now, I don't know who this guy is, but you can tell he got the white supremacist smirk on his face. But he's going to explain what his association to old Kyle Rittenhouse was. Let's read this. Is anyone surprised that Kyle's far-right political handlers ensured this particular detail didn't make it into his book? He had a photo attached, and he says, regarding this online, this online high school diploma, his online high school diploma, we had to force him to complete the 4 years of credits in just 10 months, which he did using the Google machine. We invested significant effort to craft the image you witnessed during the trial. We outfitted him with new suits. First of all, boy, y'all did a piss poor job at crafting a damn image, all that fake crime he was doing, but I digress. We're going to read on further. There's more, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue. We outfitted him with new suits, arranged for his haircut every weekend during the trial, and dedicated over 200 hours to prepare him for direct and cross-examination. We employed the world's leading jury consultant and conducted extensive research through 3 mock trials to identify the ideal jurors and the most effective approach for his testimony. Transforming a middle school dropout. Jesus Christ, you was a middle school dropout, boy? Oh, Jesus Christ. Boy, these damn children who was angry at the world. Oh, boy, we know that's when the problem started. When them alabaster men get angry at the world, boy, we see what they do. With a history of violence and an unhealthy obsession with guns and killing into a respectable young man with a desire for higher education and a promising future was no easy feat. See, boy, when they get to telling on themselves and see just right here alone, we're not done yet. This is what your problem is, white supremacist America. Instead of you dealing with the problems amongst you, you try to prop them up. Look at how you worship your heroes throughout history and build statues to some of the most demonic figures in history. But we're going to continue reading. This is people turning on him now. Do you hear what this guy said his association was to him? Let's continue. It was a meticulously crafted facade, which, okay, now let's not exaggerate now. There was nothing meticulously crafted about that. And damn sure was an intelligent, meticulously crafted image. You might have spent a lot of time doing it, which is what meticulous means. But, it's, trying to use that word as if y'all were some super geniuses. I mean, come on, man. Let me continue reading. This is crazy. Anyway, it was a meticulously crafted facade, which we sincerely hoped he would grow into. Instead, he squandered a full scholarship to study any subject at any university in the country to become a divisive douchebag. Whoa, boy, they started using them words, boy. You know they man did. You're a douchebag. And antagonize Black Americans. Oh, you don't say. On college campuses. Kyle failed to learn a single thing. He remains the same uneducated, arrogant, antagonistic individual incapable of telling the truth. Oh, boy, when they get mad and start going at each other, do you see why I said what I said when I quoted Sun Tzu about that? Oh, this is very valuable information. I sit back with my popcorn all over the place in society when they do this. Oh, yes. Let's continue reading. It gets better. Now, he genuinely believes he is the show pony we created and has surrounded himself with sycophants who fuel his inflated ego because they prioritize their political agenda and Christian nationalist worldview. Oh, boy, look at the pot calling the kettle black. Oh, no, we're not done yet, though. Hold on. Let me bring the rest of this on up because, see, there's more, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, yes, there's more. Let's continue. Despite my efforts to guide him toward a better path in life, the allure of notoriety triumphed over the prospect of putting in the hard work of pursuing an education. Kyle is ill-equipped to offer advice to young people. Oh, really? I regret my role in shaping him into whatever he has become. Oh, no. You were shaping him into a fellow white supremacist, which is what he is and what you are, sir. This is not playing the games. If I had known what I know now about Kyle's history, I wouldn't have been involved. Yeah, and then, they put some of his stuff up here. But you know what, family, see, now you heard me read that, all right? Now, I read that tonight for a reason because, see, we're going to do a deep dive into that coddle mentality that white supremacist society has. And see, some of you nosy alabaster class people, you might want to pay attention to this one because, see, I realized that in your culture, where you think, hey, everything white is right. Sometimes you just like you're in a fishbowl and you can't see outside of that. I'm gonna show you what your problem is over here tonight, though. We all know what it is, but a lot of you don't. You've been taught to think that everything white is innocent and pure and good and clean. And I'm like, okay, how can that be the case when it's one thing now if you hate, you targeting black people, okay, because we're going to defend ourselves no matter what you try to do to us. We're going to protect ourselves and our families and communities. But see, here's where you know that you have a problem and this whole claiming you have high IQs when the threats amongst your own community are killing your own people and the future of your people, which are your children with all these mass shootings. How in the hell are you going to claim to have a high IQ when you keep trying to coddle them and make excuses for what they do? Oh, yeah, it hit different when you put it like that, don't it? Oh, yeah, family, y'all know we're finna give them this work here tonight. So, family, we're going to go ahead and get started with our analysis here tonight. And this particular conversation that I'm going to play, I'm going to let it get almost halfway through before I start making commentary on it because, see, this is going to give you a great insight into the minds of these people, what goes into making them commit the acts of mass murder and domestic terrorism that they commit. And we're going to analyze the entirety of what the problem is, even when they acknowledge what's going on tonight, okay? This is really going to show you how sick they are and why we have to always be on our guard and not really trying to blend and mix in with them people no more than we have to. Because look, I'm just going to say it like it is. White supremacist America, I'm being clear on who I'm talking to. White supremacist America. I'm just going to say this like people need to say it and stop playing. For the longest time, a lot of people will call out anti-black racism and white supremacy, but they don't really harp on the fact that you really not like normal human beings. You can't be. Your history proves it. How the hell you gonna be sitting up in a church 1 minute and then right after you get out of church, you go attend a lynching? There's nothing godly about any people that co-sign that. Nothing. And see, let me go here with it because I know where a lot of white folks that hear this is going to go. Well, I've never done that. Well, you got people in your family, chances are if they're elderly in their 60s and 70s, they've attended lynches. So there's no way that there's a small number that haven't, okay? So even if you didn't do it, today your actions don't show that you condemn anti-black racism and white supremacy, any type of inequality and injustice. See, as black Americans, especially the foundation of black American freedmen, we don't want to see anybody mistreated. All we ask for is the right for our communities to thrive and prosper and take care of our own. We don't want to commit injustice to nobody, especially nobody that's not harming us. But you can't live in a world like that. That lets you know that you are not close to the Most High in any type of way. Because, see, if you were a child of the Most High, you would be able to live in peace and harmony with everybody else that the Most High put here. No matter where you've gone across the world, your history shows that you are incapable of doing that. So we're going to get into that sick mindset that a lot of you have here. I want y'all to pull your pens and pads out as we examine this. I'm telling you, if you've never seen this before, you boy, you're going to really understand how sick some of them are. Let's let it get started here tonight.
I was almost a school shooter. In 1996, Denver, Colorado, as a student in North High, in a moment of pain and anger, I almost committed a terrible atrocity. Growing up, I learned early on that there was a strange comfort and calmness in darkness. I was always the new kid. My family was very violent and aggressive, drug-addicted parents. We were moving from place to place a lot, went to 30 or 40 different schools, always seemed to be going to a new school every other week. You woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning by some cops to run across the country to get away from them and then end up at a school I'd only be at for a couple weeks and then have to do it all again a couple days later. Was the perpetual new kid. And since I also had such an unstable household, wasn't helped by the fact that I smelled really bad because I never had a shower or didn't really have any clean clothes, so I never really had any, all my clothes were dirty and torn. I had a weight problem. I was smart. I liked comic books at a time when kids didn't really like people who liked comic books that much. So every time I went to a new school, I was in a whole new set of bullies. They'd do things like walk up to me and shoot me with a harpoon like I was a whale, or dunk food on my head because I said I was too fat. But the bullying wasn't just at home, or wasn't just at school. It happened at home a lot too. I was told I was worthless by just about everybody in my life. And when you're told you're worthless enough, you will believe it. Then you're going to do everything you can to make everybody else agree with it too. And so I did. I wrapped that darkness around me like a blanket and used it as a shield. It would keep the few that would agree with me close, but it kept everybody else away. I always had heard in life that there was good people and bad people. I must be one of the bad people, so I guess I would have to just do what I was supposed to do. So I got really aggressive. 12, 13 years old, I got really into heavy metal music, and I was the mosh pit when I went to concerts. The abuse just never seemed to stop. I got into cutting around 14 or 15 because I figured that there was all this extreme emotion going on in my life I had absolutely no control over. Had to find some way to find control over something, so I took to cutting myself. I still have the scars to this day.
Now I'm going to go ahead and start breaking this down and dissecting this mindset, okay? Because, I often clown those of them that need to be clowned, but I think you all have heard just in this initial onset here and this initial opening here of what a lot of the problem is. Let me go ahead and start addressing that. It starts at home. Like they always like to tell us, oh, yes, it does. I agree wholeheartedly. It starts at home. Because, see, you heard him describing his upbringing and how unstable his family life was, his parents on drugs. Right now, what are they dealing with, family? An opioid crisis that they want to sit here and make up laws and collar them and want to be trying to have people carrying Narcan around to save one of them in case they overdose instead of you doing what you did to black people. Okay, because, see, it's a health issue with them, but you just mass incarcerated us after you flooded our neighborhoods with drugs. Oh, but now it's a health issue with you. How the worm has turned. The chickens have come home to roost. But see, when you've got two drug-addicted parents, this is what you get. In a society designed for these people to fail up, literally fail up, okay? Don't have to have no credentials to do nothing. And you can't make it. What reason would anybody in the dominant society have to go and choose to be on drugs? But see, let me tell you, I'm going to answer that question. If you choose to do that, that makes you a degenerate. That means there was an inner degenerate in you all along, okay? You got everything you need. You got $1 million worth of whiteness, regardless of what you have monetarily in the bank, that you can use to help you fail up in society. So now you hear that his upbringing was unstable, was being abused at home, and look, let's be clear, because see, this is why I don't put the average white male in the same category of manhood, definitely as no black man. I don't. And a lot of this is going to sound cruel, but I'm going to make my point here with it. There's a lot of people that grew up in abusive households. Now, I didn't have that experience, but I know a lot of people did. They didn't grow up to even think about trying to be school shooters or whatever. See, if you have the internal strength, especially as black folks that we have, and people are bullying you, picking on you, the first thing you need to do is say, okay, if this is what it's going to be, let's start with the verbal roasting or whatever they picking on you. Learn to roast back, okay? That's the first thing. Not picking up a gun and going and killing a whole bunch of people. Learn to roast back. If they whooping your ass, okay, cool. How many ass whoopings do you intend to take? Get yourself stronger and learn to use them damn hands, feet, knees, head, elbows, and everything else for some of us. Because see, I'm gonna tell you, boy, that I was the bully in school that bullied the other bullies. Okay, I don't really understand what that's like to be bullied as a kid. But see, I'm showing you the contrast and the difference between the way they think and the way we think, okay? And see, I'm going to go here with it. This is one that's going to cut like a razor blade. Family, what are they always telling black folks? Even when things happen to us that are legitimate, that we have a grievance for, that was committed upon us, things that we don't have no control over, they tell us to stop being victims, don't we? What does it sound like he's describing? This sounds like victimhood to me. He says he was a fat guy. You can clearly see he still is. Well, you big boy, you could have did something about that. You could have did something about that. But see, instead of them, and this is the important part that sets a line of demarcation between them and us with their mindset, when they're faced with adversity and struggle, instead of them turning inward to solve problems, improve themselves, and make themselves stronger mentally, physically, and spiritually, they turn outward and blame other people for what's going on. You understand? That's the difference between us and them. And see, let me go here, white supremacists. Here's the real reason why I don't put none of their males or their women in the same category with black men and black women. And I'm talking about on the adulthood level. One, you got an entire system designed to give you unearned privileges and benefits. Number two, the reason why you're so weak as a people, white supremacists is because you didn't endure the hell that my people endured here on our own land. You didn't go through 400 plus years of demonic slavery. You didn't. So that automatically puts you in a weak position. Huh? Yeah, that's really, look, this is why they really hate us, family, because they know that we've endured things that they could never survive. They couldn't survive it back then. They can't survive even the slightest of inconveniences today. Think about it. During the pandemic, I'm going back there. During the pandemic, everybody was inconvenienced. Who was doing the most complaining? See, as black folks in America, we're like, okay, damn, we used to dealing with things. Okay, we're like, all right, we'll figure a way out. You know what I'm saying? We'll make $1 out of 15 cents, figure out what we need to do to survive. These people, as soon as something breaks down that was designed to make their life convenient and easier, oh my God, the sky is falling. Just absolutely weak. And see, let me ask the ladies and gentlemen, the Foundation of Black American Freedmen, or non-FBA people in here. How many of you have ever been somewhere and there's been some type of inconvenience, even if it was temporary, and then these people just get to complaining? I don't know about y'all, but I can't stand that. That's one of my pet peeves. I'll tell you that one. That, oh my God, I can't be around somebody that just whine and complain about something minor. Temporary inconvenience, they just lose their damn mind. Seriously, how many of y'all have either been on a job or you've been maybe say on vacation, a nice hotel somewhere, and they just get to whining and complaining like big overgrown bitches? I can't stand that. This is how weak these people are. But see, how they see themselves, they think they're the smartest thing it is, the strongest thing it is. How? When you look at your situation. So I get it. When he was a kid, he couldn't control that as far as what his parents was doing. But you can always control how you respond to something. Because see, let me tell you something. And this is something that I shouldn't have to tell black kids, but I'm going to say it. And maybe any young Black Foundation of Black American or non-FBA person listen to me will remember these words. You can control how you react to things. You can. Okay? As long as you don't have some type of terminal illness, as long as you have all your cognitive functioning ability, okay, your mind does, can process things without any type of disability, what have you, you can always figure out a solution to a problem. See, there's an internal confidence, and see, I understand everybody's family upbringing wasn't the same, but there's an internal confidence that you can equate in a metaphorical sense to a fire, okay? My parents, uncles, great-grandparents, look, I've got something in me. I don't need cosign from nobody or nothing. If I plan to do something, I'm going to get it done. I don't care if I have to stand one against many. I'm going to get it done. I don't let what other people say bother me. And by the way, speaking of this, I'm going to go into detail about that haterade subject on Patreon. I'm going to have a broadcast coming up about that and why it's not, anything productive or constructive to have beef with people. I got a great broadcast coming up about that. It's going to be funny, but it's going to teach some lessons. But dealing with this subject matter here tonight, when you put that into a child from an early age, that stays with them for the rest of their life, because the more that they adopt that mindset, the more that they discover what their own talents are, the more that they overcome and solve their own problems, which is a thing to be celebrated all the time. You got Black children, boys or girls, when you see them solving their own problems, you got them on the right path, and you always tell them to celebrate that, because that means that they have the tools they need, even though you're in their lives, to solve their own problems. They're becoming a confident, capable human being, okay? These people here, you hear his upbringing. See, his is not the only one. He's not a one-off. This is what most of them lives are like. See, as I get ready to let this play, I'm going to show you something, family, and I want you to never forget this. All of these goofy trolls that come over into our spaces, okay, you know, if you've ever been in our good brother Tariq Nasheed's space, you see they just love to come over there. Let me tell you something. This is them. This is their life right here. This slovenly, fat, overweight. And, I got to call him what he is. He sounded like he grew up like a punk. I'm not blaming him for his parents, let's be clear. But the way he chose, I almost became a school shooter. How? Because some people teased your punk ass? Really? See, let me tell you something, dude. Let me talk to the Foundation of Black American Freedmen men in here. Let me ask y'all brothers a question. How many of y'all remember the first fight or the first few fights you got into as a kid? Do any of y'all remember that? Because I know we got different age ranges and generations over here. How many of y'all remember your first fight or your first few fights that you got into? And sisters, you could probably relate to this as well, but I know the men are going to get this. Now, whether it was win, lose, or draw, at that point, what that first fight or a few fights should have taught you was that, hey, there's going to be situations that I'm going to have to deal with that my parents can't help me with. So if I'm going to walk through this world without being in a terrified shell, hooded all over everywhere, and just fearing when somebody's going to attack me, I better learn to defend myself. Now, if you grew up like I did, my father trained me very early. From the minute that I could walk, my father was teaching me different types of martial arts. Today, I have well over 30 years of experience in that. I used to compete and won championships with that. That's a whole story for another day. In addition, y'all already know what my background is as far as the military, okay? But as a child, when you learn that, okay, hey, if I'm somewhere and my folks or my kinfolk, I'm gonna have to throw these hands and do what I got to do to protect myself. I just don't see how that didn't click in him, even if he didn't have that. See, if your life is valuable to you, you're going to do whatever it takes to protect and defend your life, okay? I mean, so it's like, instead of just taking the abuse, you got to understand something. When it comes to a bully or somebody abusing you, it only stops when you stand up and say, this is the last time. Am I right or wrong, ladies and gentlemen gathered here in this chat room tonight? Am I right or wrong? Y'all sound off. Let me know. Tell me if I'm right or wrong on that statement that I just said, because if I'm wrong about it, I need to be corrected. Okay? So I'm going to let this play. And again, as I get ready to start this back and continue this analysis, just know that this is the average online white supremacist. This is what their life was. So they have to come around black people. See, here's the other thing that's going to kill them. They're really not going to like this statement. The reason why a lot of them come online and be near us, because let me tell you something. They'll never admit it. But whether it's a Tariq Nasheed or Professor Black Truth, well, they know not to try to come over there and troll Professor Black Truth. He will clown you off the internet. That brother's very funny, in addition to being extremely intelligent. But when they come over to these different platforms to try to engage with us, it's because they admire who we are. They'll never really admit that, but they do admire who we are, okay? They admire our strength. They admire our fashion sense. And Lord knows they admire everything about foundational Black American freedom culture, because they try to emulate it to a horrible degree. Anything that they put their hand in our culture, it just gets ruined. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it like this. I don't care who that offends. It's the truth. But see, when they come over around us, they're really trying to be close to God's children. We are the ones that have a vibrance and an appreciation for life around us. We're the ones that try to produce justice in general, okay? We've got good and bad people in every demographic of all over the world. But for the most part here in America, we try to treat people right. So when you're in a society that all they do is practice injustice, that starts to drive you insane after a while. So you have to seek out other Black people, even if you have to do it by being insulting. See, they don't understand that instead of you trying to come over to where we are and insult us and practice anti-Black racism, how about you learn to be around God's children and emulate our example as a people in general? That's what you should learn to do. But I'm going to let this continue, because, see, this is very important to study about what goes into creating them to make them want to do that, because the average Black man or Black woman or Black child don't ever wake up and say, I'm going to go to school and shoot up a bunch of people. You can't put that on Pookie and Ray Ray. They do a lot of things, but Pookie and Ray Ray don't usually go to no damn school and just target everybody because somebody was picking on them. Let's let it continue.
15, 16 years old, I ended up homeless. My parents had long ago kicked me out because I didn't want to deal with their drunken fighting anymore, so I was living on the streets. I had thought I had pushed all my other friends away too, shoved them all away by lying to them or stealing from them, or doing everything that my family taught me how to react to everybody, which was the complete wrong way of how to react. But I had no idea. I was just going on what I was taught.
Let me stop him right here, because, see, this big fat waste of space, and I'm going to call him what he is, talking about what he was taught. You heard what he just said. Okay, if you know that your home life is such a hellish upbringing and you're getting picked on left and right, I want to show you a fatal flaw about the white supremacist mentality. The person that you said showed you kindness, why the hell would you try to steal from them? Think about it. You see, they don't really listen to themselves when they start going into victim mode. And I'm not going to show no compassion on this here tonight for this overweight slob, because see, these people are dangerous to the community. Regardless of what you're going to hear at the end of this, I'm showing you why they're dangerous. This man just clearly said how bad his life was, and then the person that showed you kindness, you seek to do harm towards them. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up, I'm showing you how to thread the needle through how their psyche has not changed throughout history, family. Look at what they've done everywhere they've gone throughout history in the world. People invite them in, show them kindness, help them out, and the first thing they do, hey, okay, now that we're good and full, we know the lay of the land, colonizing time. It's been passed down through generations. They do it to each other. You hear him saying that. See, he doesn't realize it. And this is a mostly white audience he's talking in front of. So they're not going to call it out because they suffer from the same degenerate mental sickness and spiritual sickness. Yeah, I just want to point that out. You having such a hard time, but you betraying and stealing from the people that try to show you some type of humanity. See, but this is the part nobody ever points out. We're going to drill down on here tonight, though. Let's let it continue.
Finally, 16 years old, I'm sitting in my best friend's shed, who I thought I had already pushed away too by stealing from him and lying from him. Laying in this shed with the roof wide open, rain pouring down on me into a dungy gray chair that was covered in cobwebs and dirt, hadn't been touched in months. And I'm sitting there with my arm covered in blood, knowing that if I didn't do something, I was going to kill myself soon. So I did the only thing I could think of to do. Grabbed a phone book and I called social services.
Now, let me drill down on this part where he was talking about he started cutting himself. See, if you're in a survival situation or you being threatened by something external, this goes to show you why I don't consider them warriors, and I damn sure don't consider them on the same level of manhood as us, because we've seen this across all branches of society, yes, including the military. Don't make me get started on that. Let me tell you something, man. First of all, if you have an appreciation for protecting your own life, and you actually are tethered and attached to a purpose in life beyond yourself, the last thing on the planet that you do is say, well, I'm having a hard time. Let me start harming myself. Hell no. No, that's the last thing you want to start doing, is harming yourself in any type of manner. But see, a lot of them have that issue where, okay, they're going through something, they start cutting themselves. Okay, and I'm going to go back to what's up with this victimhood. Why you trying to get attention? And see, you half-assing it because a lot of them there, you ain't cutting in the right places. A lot of y'all just be doing that to get attention. To the white supremacists that practice that demonic foolishness. How you going to sit here and say, oh, let me go here with it? Because see, I come from a warrior's bloodline, literally, okay? I can trace my family lineage back and show you up and down where I come from. Our people in general, as foundational Black American freemen, we don't have it in us to quit that damn easy. You know why? Because of our history in this country. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing that I would ever go through that would make me consider to harm myself. No, because one, I value the life that the Most High has given me. And number two, beyond that, I have a purpose here for the people around me and my family and my community. See, think about it. If any of you, white, because I know you listen, white folks, if you think, oh man, he just cruel, don't you dare say that. What you say to us, and when you see our young ones like Tamir Rice being killed and you sit there and celebrate about that, I'm going to say what need to be said over here tonight. Let me tell you something. If you got a fat, degenerate bastard like this amongst you, don't you know that's the weak link in any group? Think about it. If you're in a survival situation, every man or woman in that situation needs to be trying to think, okay, what are we going to do to survive what we're dealing with? But you got one over here in the corner. Oh, I give up. I'll go over here and cut myself. Okay, now you taking away from an able body that we may need in the group to solve the situation. And then when you hurt yourself, if we're going to be humane and not just leave you to bleed the damn devil, now we got to spend time and resources to pat your goofy ass up. See, these are liabilities. They are walking liabilities in their own communities with their own people. Too weak to deal with problems from the external world in a positive way, so you take it out on everybody else and around you. This is why I don't like renting around large numbers of them. I don't. And I don't apologize for saying it. I don't want to be where large numbers of them are. When I see them like that, I'm like, okay, which one of these motherfuckers is going to do something stupid? That's what I'm always thinking, okay? Unlike some of you tethers, boy, you think, boy, you've made it to white conda heaven, boy, if you surrounded by them. You don't understand you in the most danger. Because, see, listen, never mind my opinion. I'm going to give you some scientific homework to do or some medical homework to do. My medical professionals in the chat room can back me up on this. Do you know who the demographic here, really on the planet, period, due to their, recessive genes, but do you know who the demographic here is that suffers from the most mental, the most susceptible to mental deficiencies and mental disabilities and illnesses? It ain't black folks. It's them. Yes. Oh, don't believe me. You go do your research on that. Yeah. So I'm just letting you know. For me, I just can't be comfortable around large numbers on. But I'm gonna let Big Boy here continue because see, you got to examine this mindset, and I'm glad that he's saying it in his own words in front of his own people where he's most comfortable explaining what was really on his mind coming up. Let's let it continue.
So when I went to social services, sadly, they didn't just bring me in there. They also took my mom in there too, who happened to be one of the largest sources of my pain growing up. And since she had spent her entire life running from place to place and dealing with social workers and police officers, she knew exactly what to say to get me to get them to believe that I was just making it all up. It was all just an act. I was just doing it for attention. And then they sent me home with her. And as they sent me home with her, she turned to me and she said, "Next time you should do a better job and I'll buy you the razor blades." My heart just got ripped out of me at that point completely. That darkness that I've been staring at for so long, I just ran headlong into it. I had nothing left to live for. I literally had nothing to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you can do anything. And that is a terrifying thought.
Let me deal with what he's saying right here, okay? And I want you to pay attention to the faces in the audience, where they're looking. See, I'm glad that he's talking to them because he's showing them the ugliness of their spirit that they have. This is one of their own talking about how his own parents treated him. The term mother, okay, and father, that's supposed to be the physical manifestation for the Most High to a child on earth. That's what that's supposed to be. Do you know how evil you have to be as somebody's parent to say what she said to him? Think about the psychological damage that did to him because, see, when you're born into this world, we all understand that you are attached to a physical umbilical cord, but there's also a spiritual one attached. When you do that to a child and you say what his mother said to him, and I'm not going to call her mother, she gave birth to him because that's an earned honorable title also, mother and father. She severed any type of wholesome or healthy spiritual connection she had to that boy. Hell, bitch, if you didn't want him, why didn't you give him up for adoption? But instead you abuse him and you create a little monster to put into the world because you hear what he's saying he was about to do and what he was talking about. But see, they'll hear this from their own and they have the nerve to look at us trying to say that we're the ones the most degenerate. Let me tell you something, man. I'm going to say what needs to be said here. Even the most degenerate of hood rats that you can think of got their asses twerking all over the place, just ignorant, loud, whatever. I ain't really never heard none of them hood rats tell their kids they don't love them. I'll give them credit on that. Now, I'm not saying there's none out there that wouldn't do it, but I've rarely ever come across that. And screwed up in the head that some of them may be, one thing I will say, they do love their kids. They do. Even if they're not really equipped to give them the best lifestyle, you rarely ever find a black parent telling the child something like that. Huh? So let's look at the psychological damage that does to him, and he's going to further explain it. But see, I want to deal with something that he said because, see, I really, and this is going to shock y'all, I want everybody to take to heart what I'm about to say next, no matter what race you are, okay? That whole I don't have nothing to lose. No, if you breathing and you still here, you got something to lose. No matter what you're dealing with in life, you better learn to love the life that you were given. If you are blessed to wake up and draw breath, you're supposed to have a selfish love for your own life. And beyond that, hopefully you have a purpose where there's other people that, that you mean something to or that means something to you that okay, hey, if I was going to do something to myself, that would cause them an inordinate amount of pain that they would have to deal with for the rest of their lives, okay? So that's the other part of going outside of yourself as far as any external connections, but the strongest connection you must have as a person must be within. You should never let nobody make you feel like your life is not worth anything. I don't care what they do or say. Look, that person has the issue. It's not you. So the number one thing, if you are in some type of situation like that, I'm going to give you one word and you have to burn this into your spirit. Survive. You understand? You survive. You don't give up and hurt yourself or whatever. No, you survive. If you are allowed to be breathing and living and walking here, the Most High had a purpose for you. Okay? That's what I want everybody to take away from that. But we're going to get back into analyzing this mindset because, see, again, I'm glad that he's speaking towards his own people in his own words where he's most comfortable expressing what he was thinking and what happened to him. Let's get back to it.
I decided that my act of doing something was I was going to express my extreme anger and rage by getting a gun. I was going to attack either my school or a mall food court. Really didn't matter to me which one. It wasn't about the people. It was about the largest amount of damage in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of security. Both those places were ripe targets. So I wish I had a better story about actually getting a gun, but that was actually really rather businesslike. There was some gangbanger kids near my school. It was back in the mid-90s when gangs were still a rather major problem in North Denver schools. And this kid had seen me. He knew me from my family. He'd sold drugs to them before, and he knew that I wasn't really in school. I was just always at school, so he knew I wasn't a narc or anything like that. But didn't know him anything more than a first name. But that didn't really take anything more than that. I knew that they had access to guns. They talked about it all the time. So I went up to him and said, "Hey, can you get me a gun?" "Sure, get me an ounce." "All right, give me 3 days." That was it. I was waiting to get myself a gun so I could kill a lot of people. But thankfully, I wasn't alone in that darkness. That best friend who had saved me, I was sleeping in his shed, he saw this place that I was in. Even though I had stolen from him and lied to him and took in his belongings and ruined it all, he didn't care. He still brought me in and showed me acts of kindness. Just simple acts. It wasn't the kind of overbearing kindness where they come to you and they say, "Is there anything I can do to you? Is there a program I can get you in? Is there something I can do to make you better? How can I help you?" It was literally just sitting down next to me. "Hey, would you like a meal? Let's watch a movie." Treat it like it was a Tuesday. Treat me like I was a person. And when someone treats you like you're a person, when you don't even feel like you're human, it'll change your entire world. And it did to me. He stopped me with his acts of kindness from committing that atrocity that day. If you see someone who's in that spot that needs that love, give it to them. Love the ones you feel deserve it the least because they need it the most. It'll help you just like as much as it helps them. We're in a really big, dangerous spot right now with this trend of arming the teachers and looking out for the kids who might be the threat in schools and maybe turning them into the FBI. What's that going to do to a kid who's in the position that I was in 25 years ago, who's alone and depressed and abused and is just sitting there hurting, and someone thinks that they're a threat? So he gets turned into the FBI, and 1 month of pain turns into a lifetime of legal trouble because one person thought he was going to be a problem.
Now, this is the part that a lot of people not going to like because you're like, "Damn, man, you ain't showing them no compassion." I can't afford to because I've seen the damage that these domestic terrorists will do if they aren't stopped early, okay? And if white America isn't going to call it out, I'm going to call it out. I understand his situation, but in order for you to be the type of person that is going to have the strength to survive in the world, it shouldn't have taken someone else showing you acts of kindness to not make you want to go kill other people that are innocent. That's supposed to be tied within you if you actually a child of the Most High. Okay? Listen, anger is a natural human emotion. We all experience that. But I guarantee you, I can probably say all of you in this chat room, no matter how many times you've gotten angry at somebody, even when they actually deserve to be the target of that anger or rage that you have, none of y'all had ever thought about, let me go and kill hundreds of people behind this one person or somebody that did something to me. I guarantee most black people do not think that way. Okay? We don't. So when you have someone like him that's looking external for somebody to make them a better person, that's supposed to start within you. That's a journey that you're going to have to take. But see, unfortunately, many of them in society, they're not accustomed to that. See, look, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you right now how you know you're doing a good job as a black parent if you're raising kids, okay? If your child come home one day, and it's going to happen because life is life and children are going to be children. If your child come home one day talking about people picking on them and this, that, the third, okay, cool. They'll be hurt initially, but after you sit that child down and talk to them, especially if you had parents like I have, okay? Man, listen, let me tell you something. You let that child know that, hey, even if that whole school turns on you tomorrow, you're not the most popular person, whatever, as long as they don't put their hands on you, damn all of them. You were put here for a reason and a purpose, and it's not connected to any external validation that they give you or don't give you. See, it's important that you teach children that early. Cool, if they're going to give you accolades and praise for something, cool, accept it with grace. But if they take it back, here's the question that I was told a long time ago that was presented to me as a child. If they take away all the adulation and adoration for any awards you get or whatever, does that mean that you still don't have that God-given gift and talent just because they don't acknowledge it? See, you got to really stop and think about seeking external validation. No, it's supposed to be within, baby. And if it's within you, nobody can extract it from you, whether they acknowledge it or not. That doesn't change what you are. If you're intelligent and somebody calls you ignorant or dumb, that's not going to make you unintelligent or dumb. Yeah, I'm going to tell you how it will make you that way if you start to internalize that and believe it. That's where the problem comes in at. And see what he was saying here about, oh, well, don't call the FBI, or basically, I'm paraphrasing, but no, the FBI must be called because, see, just because you dealing with something, that doesn't mean that innocent people should have to be murdered and killed because you decide to go and pick up a weapon. And you heard how easy he explained it was for him to get his hands on a firearm, which is common in their society. Okay, so I disagree with that part. Some of you may feel some compassion for him. I don't, because you're in a society designed for you to fail up. Listen, if your parents were mistreating you like that, hey, you could change that situation. I'm pretty sure you had to have other family members or somebody. Yeah, I mean, you could have ran away. You could have did a lot of things. Yeah, I'm going there. I'm talking to them like they talk to us. And the reason why I'm doing that is because this mindset that you hear is common. This is how all of them are. And we're going to get into that a little bit here in a minute. But I'm going to let him finish up his speech here. I thought this was very important to play before we get into the main part of our subject matter here tonight. Let's let it continue.
Instead of looking at that kid like he's a threat, look at him like he might be a friend. Look at him like you might be able to bring him into your fold. Show him that it's just a Tuesday. Show him that he's worth it. Show him that he can exist in this pain, even though it's intense, that at the end of it, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I found my light. Now I'm a happy family man. I have a father of 4. My wife and my daughter are in the audience today. And even bigger than that, the friend who saved my life, he's in the audience today too. Because friendship doesn't ever really die. We have to give love to the people who we think deserve it the least. Thank you.
Days.
Now, I'm going to tell you the problem that I have with his closing statements there. Oh, yeah. You say, what problem could you possibly have with that, GBS? Oh, I got a problem with it. Because, see, even though he didn't go on to commit the acts that he was talking about, family, let me put this question on your mind. He's got a wife and children. Great. No problem. The issue I have is, what happens if you're faced with some type of adversity and you can't get that external validation that helped you go on and survive? Well, in other words, every black man in here can understand what I'm saying. As men, those of us that are grown, able-bodied, we're supposed to be protectors and providers. We're supposed to be the front line, the sword and the shield. So we can't afford to go cuddle up in a damn corner somewhere when shit get hard. We're supposed to toughen up and say, okay, it's bad, but if I fall, my family behind me is going to suffer. No further shall you pass, okay? That's what manhood is right there. Now, oh my God, I feel so easy. They're crying and all that other stuff. So my question is, okay, do you really have the intestinal fortitude to be a man and lead a family through any type of hardship? Because, see, I got news for you. Just because he didn't commit that act, that sentiment is still there. Because, see, that's something that a normal human being does not think about, hurting innocent people in mass because they're dealing with hardship. And see, I got to go here in case a lot of you in the dominant society think that I'm being cruel. You know the track record of your community of when the head of the family, the white male, gets upset, he goes and kills his wife and his children. Oh, yeah, I'm going there. So, yeah, you better keep your eye on those like that. Yeah, he gave a pretty good speech there at the end. I'm glad that you didn't kill innocent people. But my question is, if you haven't found the strength that it takes to be a man, especially in a society in this country, where, again, I'm going to say it, I don't care who don't like it. You're in a country where it's designed for you to fail up. Fail up. Literally, in every facet of society that they're in, they can fail up. They don't have to have skills. They don't have to have anything. All they have to do is have the complexion for the protection. Yeah. So that's my issue with what he said there at the end. But see, we're not done yet. I want to show you further how some of their so-called experts view this problem that we have here with their mass shooting domestic terrorists. See, I'm doing this tonight so that you can see just how much of a problem it is with them, because see, these people, they're incapable of producing justice, not towards us just, but they can't produce justice towards their own people. You're going to see why I say that here in a minute. I want y'all to take notes on this. Let's get started.
Deadliest shooting in U.S. history.
At least 18 people. 14.
Oh, I gotta pause it, man. Man, salute to my first sergeant, some chick named Star. I gotta touch on this. She brought up a very important point here in the chat room. She said, what will he do if his wife leaves him for the friend that saved him? Oh, yeah. Oh, yep. Scooter the shooter still with it. Oh, see, that's another thing. I gotta touch on this, family, before we go there. She said something very important, because see, whether you're a man or a woman, yes, we have our significant others that we love, okay? Nothing wrong with that. That's a natural human thing to do. But if that person happens to leave you, okay, we're not talking about an unfortunate transition. They leave early that way. We're talking about they say, I wake up, I don't want to do this no more. Okay, it's going to hurt, but are you going to take that out on other people? Because if you're still breathing, life goes on. You're going to be all right. And you wish them the best. Don't have no hatred for them. In other words, the point that I'm making is your zeal for life, your ability to be an upright and just person should never be connected to another person that might get up and change their mind and leave one day. That happens in life, unfortunately. And see, unfortunately, a lot of times when they decide to fly off the deep end, it's over that issue that the sister just mentioned right there. They have a personal relationship issue, and then now the rest of the world got to suffer for that. And there was another brother or sister, I'm not sure, up here. I want to address this before we get back to playing this tonight. This person, Willie Tresser, said, why have that much rage you need to delete people? Well, I can answer that question. In their society, they feel when they give themselves the feeling that they're powerless or what have you, the only way that they feel power is to try to take it out on innocent people, ambushing folks, children, elderly folks. You see how they act. So that's the reason why they do that. They think that that's going to give them a sense of power, which is something you're going to kind of mention here in the rest of this that we have the review here tonight. So I'm going to let this play and y'all take notes, because it's going to be a lot to learn about their thought processes and why they hadn't really done anything to solve the problem. Instead of looking at white supremacist male terrorism, okay, and you got some of their women doing it too, but the majority are their males, proven by the FBI crime statistics, not my opinion. You're going to see why they don't get anything done, because they refuse to really address what the problem is. Let's get back to it.
Students.
10 people shot dead.
15 people are believed to have died.
At least 14 dead. 33 dead, 29 wounded.
At least 17 people have been killed. 80 people were killed or wounded in 2 evil attacks.
This only happens in this country.
Just kept going, and my husband said, that's not firecrackers, that sounds like a semi-automatic rifle.
They were shooting anyone of color wearing a white hat or playing a sport. But I don't know where my son is. No one can tell me where my son is.
The majority of those who died today were children. Beautiful little kids between the ages of 5 and 10 years old.
There's only so many times you can walk into a room and tell someone they're not coming home tomorrow.
Mass shootings in the United States have been on the rise in the past 20 years. It's been way too many. According to the Gun Violence Archive, this year alone, there's been 199 mass shootings, and it's only May. That's more than one a day. I was just about to sit down to record this video when I learned about 2 more that happened today. One at a mall in Dallas, Texas, and one at a party near California State University, Chico. I know that there will be more incidents between when I record this video and when it gets posted online, so I guess I'll put all the new incidents here. I don't know about you, but every time I hear about yet another mass shooting, I'm shocked and horrified. But at this point, I'm not surprised. It's become far too normal in America for things like this to happen. And these incidents have a huge impact on our lives and well-being. They threaten our communities and haunt our minds because suddenly anywhere, like a grocery store or a movie theater or a church or a synagogue or a parking lot or a Sweet 16 party or a mall or a school, can become the epicenter of unspeakable violence. Who would do such a thing? What drives a person to decide to kill a lot of people? We're going to dive into the mind of a mass shooter to see what inspires these terrible actions. It's not going to be pretty, but it will reveal the warning signs that could be used to stop these kinds of tragedies from happening in the future.
Our thoughts and prayers are not enough.
This is just absolutely pure evil.
This video was sponsored by Brilliant. To understand the mind of a mass shooter, we first need a profile of who we're talking about. Of course, every individual and incident is different, but from a population standpoint, there are patterns of behaviors or characteristics that we can analyze to draw some conclusions about their personality, psychology, and motives. Much of the information that I'll be sharing comes from the FBI and the Violence Project, which is a government-funded nonprofit organization that has compiled a lot of information regarding every mass shooting in the US since 1966. So, here's some stats. 97% of all mass shooters are men. The average age of a mass shooter is between about 32 and 34. Shooters at school.
Let me go ahead and stop him because you already can tell he's trying to sugarcoat what he's talking about. No. The average majority of mass shooters are white men. Let's call this what it is. See, and this too is another reason why they can't solve problems, because they really talk about not taking accountability. They can't, when they start telling the truth, they can't tell the whole truth. Say who's doing it. Because if he's using the FBI statistics, they tell you who the majority of the white male mass shooters are. So yeah, I just go ahead and you had to chop him off right there to let him continue.
Schools or college campuses are typically younger, in their 20s, while shooters at places of worship or workplaces tend to be older, like in their 40s. 53% of all mass shooters are white, 20% are black, 8% are Latinx, 6% are Asian, 4% are Middle Eastern, and 2% are Native American.
Salute to the good brother Project Leroy for the cash out. Now, let's look at this diagram that he got on the screen here. I'm gonna go ahead and challenge this. You got to put black people in there at 20%. No, because even though that seems like a small number, think about it, family. Unless you count cities where there's violence between rival gangs or what have you, mass shooting has a specific definition. We talking about going in supermarkets, schools, or what have you, and just start shooting up people. You rarely ever, even in 2024, date of this year, this broadcast, you rarely ever hear about a black person going and decide to pull a Dylan Roof or Peyton Gendry. You don't. So see, that's another thing too. When they're the majority of something, they gotta dump some of it over on the black people. See that goofy projection where they always making up something? You can't solve any problem by pretending that it's not as bad as it really is. Okay, so don't put that on us. No, because nobody in this chat. Look, let me tell you something. Wherever y'all from, listen to this broadcast. How many of y'all know a black person that committed a mass shooting? Think about it now. How many of you know? I want to see some before we get back to this. How many of y'all know? Because he's saying that he got these from the FBI crime statistics talking about the number 20%. How many of y'all know any black person, male or female, that decided to walk up in a school, supermarket, wherever, church, and just shoot up a bunch of folks? How many black people can you say that you know of, even if you didn't know them personally, that decided to go and commit a racially target shooting? Whether it was towards Jewish people in the LGBTQ community, hell, even people in the dominant society. We don't go and just mass shoot them people like that. Huh? Think about it. How, y'all can see white supremacists, pay attention to this chat room, because I have an honest audience over here. My audience, if I was saying something that was incorrect or wasn't being truthful, they would challenge me on it. And they're free to do so. This is a channel that's about truth over here. So see, when you look in this chat room, you see most of my people like, we don't know nobody that do that. Most of the shootings that happens in Black America is from us trying to protect or defend ourselves, because these race soldiers don't show up and do their job. And we all know, I've proven this on Patreon, that it's really they're not obligated to protect or defend you. The race soldiers are really only obligated to protect property. They don't, a lot of y'all probably didn't know that. Yeah, if you open my Patreon, you saw the documents I posted that proved that to you. You can look that up your own if you don't, not on my Patreon. Okay? So I just want to take time to touch on that. I'm going to let him continue, because see, we're going to have a lot more to dissect here about how they view things with this particular problem that's affecting everybody in America.
Those demographics shift depending on the location. Shooters at K through 12 schools or places of worship or stores or restaurants are more likely to be white, while shooters on college campuses are more likely to be Asian. And workplace shootings have a more mixed racial profile. 80% of mass shooters experience an identifiable personal crisis prior to the shooting. Most often, that's linked to severe and acute life stressors, and they tend to exhibit multiple signs or certain behavioral changes, including increased agitation, abusive behavior, and isolation. 70% of mass shooters know at least some of their victims. 54% have a history of perpetuating domestic violence and abuse. 56% of active shooters share their intent to commit violence in some way ahead of time. 28% have a military background. About 70% of mass shooters are known to be suicidal and view their mass shooting as a final act or blaze of glory that's intended to end in their death. Around 60% die on the scene of the shooting. Hearing all of this information, we start to get a picture of the demographics and life circumstances of.
Now, I want you to notice what he left out. You notice that he didn't say or put in there how many of them have white supremacist ties. Because see, everything that he described right there, that's commonplace of them folks and how they think when they commit those types of crimes. Just wanted to point that part out. Let it continue.
A mass shooter. But you know what hasn't come up yet? Mental illness.
Horrifying mass shootings that have been linked to mental illness.
I think that mental health is your problem here.
How do we make sure that individuals with mental illness do not touch a gun?
I think what this does is highlight some of the mental health issues, the mental health crisis we have in this country.
We got to have a severe conversation here with this country. We got to deal with mental illness.
Did you know that he was sick?
No, I just thought he was a disillusioned, aloof, shy young man that needed as much love as we could give. And he wasn't easy.
Do y'all hear this? See, I told you finna see what the problem is. Instead of them turning towards these white supremacist households and the drugs that's in them and the unstable upbringing, they say mental illness is the problem. They just can't look at themselves and see what they really are. And in case you know, this is Elliot Rodgers' father, and Peter Rodgers, okay, talking about his kid, decided to go on a killing spree because the women didn't like him, little weak bastard. His parents, he come from money. See, let me address that part too about those white supremacist incels that decide to go and shoot up a bunch of people because the white women or white girls that they want don't want them. This is true for every race of man on the planet. Attracting women and getting the women that you want or getting the women to notice you or be attracted to you, it don't start with the women. It does not start with the women. It doesn't. Let me say it again. It doesn't start with the women. It starts with you as a man improving yourself, whether it's in your physique, in your intellect, whatever social status you have, whatever type of living that you're trying to earn. It starts with you. You see, they doing it all backwards. And see, I don't know what type of father this little punk was raising here, Elliot Rodgers, the demonic terrorist that he was. May he rest in peace. Here's the thing. How you don't teach your son that? Huh? My father, my uncles, grandfather, and great-grandfather all taught me that. It start with you. You can't go run around after the women and expect to get what you want if you don't work on yourself first. Especially when you got the advantage that he had. You come from money. You driving a luxury car, something most kids that would never have. And they still want to attract it. That lets you know it ain't the women, it's you, little goofball. Y'all saw what Elliot Rodgers looked like. Little scrawny, degenerate punk and a coward at that. Because you ambush innocent people over something. And see, a lot of people have speculated that a lot of the women that he was interested in, because you heard the little speech that he gave, it's still up on YouTube. I think you can see it. Where he was talking about, you know, them white women liking them black guys with him. I'm like, hey, man, listen, if y'all don't learn to compete, you're going to always be mad at the world. That's for you, white supremacist society. So I just had to point that part out. Let it continue.
Because he wouldn't suck the oxygen out of the room.
Turn on any channel or read any news article in the wake of one of these violent incidents, and mental illness will inevitably come up. Whether it's politicians.
But this is also a mental illness problem. If you look at both of these cases, this is mental illness.
Reporters.
Possibly investigators say PTSD, that's what they're looking at, but he had a history of problem.
Community members.
Evidence that the shooter was suffering with a mental illness was identified.
Everyone instinctually fixes their gaze on this one factor to try to make sense of these senseless acts.
And I got to point out something the good brother Diesel Mike said in the chat room. And this is absolutely true. Let me highlight this comment here. Diesel Mike says, it's bull. As much trauma as black people went through, a lot of us have mental health issues, and we aren't deleting innocent people. And you are absolutely right, my brother. Think about it. If you look at the hell, and I've covered that history extensively here on this channel over the years. If you look at the hell that was inflicted upon black people as a collective, we should be mass murdered. We shouldn't have survived what was done to us. That's more proof that we're God's children. And then beyond that, okay, if we going with the mental illness thing that just make you kill a bunch of people, why aren't we murdering them every time they turn around? I'm talking about en masse, in droves. They shouldn't be safe to be around any of us. And instead, it's the opposite. The safest place that you could ever be is around a group of black folks. Because look, let's go here. Y'all have seen that clip that's been floating around the internet for quite some time now, where the white woman was telling her daughter if she ever got lost, the first thing she need to find is a big black man. You know why? Because we don't have no track record of harming little children of any race. If anybody's child finds their way to anybody in the black community, the first thing we're going to try to do is help that kid, because we see children as children. Unlike people in white supremacist society, they don't see our children, especially as human beings at all, regardless of how young or small they are. Okay? Remember the quote that I always told y'all about Leander Perez, a white Hispanic, by the way. His quote was, the best way to hate an N-word is to hate him before he exits his mother's womb. That's what a lot of them and these white adjacent tellers think about us, okay? So yeah, I salute to that good brother Diesel Mike for making that comment. Like he said, I agree with him. According to the trauma that we've suffered, that's in our bloodline, we shouldn't have no type of sanity whatsoever. We should just be running around on killing sprees if that was really the problem. But see, they're not going to acknowledge that. Let's let it continue.
But here's the thing. Mental illness does not cause mass shootings. And in fact, most mass shooters are not mentally ill.
Absolutely correct. Now, this is what I agree with what he's saying. Those people are not mentally ill, because look at the strategic planning that goes into it. See, when you say mentally ill, you're not supposed to have functioning cognizance to plot out things and premeditate these killings that they commit. And then I'm going to tell you where you really can't claim that you're mentally ill. If you do that act and then try to flee, or try to defend yourself against anybody that shows up, oh, you're not mentally ill. You got plenty of sense. Oh, yes, you do. Because see, if you fleeing, that means you know what you did was wrong. And then if somebody shows up to try to apprehend you, you try to fight back, that also lets you know that you in your right frame of mind, you know that what you did was wrong. So see, mentally ill people would just do something and then just be standing there not knowing what's going on. So yeah, I agree with him on that. Let's let it continue.
Hear the comments rolling in already, so let's put some nuance to this admittedly provocative stance. There is an assumption that I think a lot of people make about mass shooters. That assumption is that if you're willing to go and kill a bunch of people, then you must be crazy or deranged or not all there. Because someone who's in full control of their mental faculties wouldn't do something that evil, right?
So many of these deranged killers have a long and horrifying descent into mental illness before they commit their crime.
I wonder if the psychologists you talk to have ever said that evil itself is a psychological disorder.
Anybody who shoots somebody else has a mental health challenge, period.
No, obviously wrong. There's so many examples of people killing lots of other people for very clear reasons. I live in Chicago, which is often called the homicide capital of the country because there's a high amount of public violence between gang members, and a lot of people die. Do people ever look at those people, those shootings, and say, this is just a sad case of someone with mental illness crying out for help? No. They're often denigrated and called violent thugs or gangbangers who grew up in the bad part of town.
It's like the
the white supremacists ain't gonna like that, boy. Because look, see, this is what they don't like when one of their own goes off code and calls them out. Because they love Chicago, right? Listen to the point that he just made, which is a very good one. When it comes to the so-called Chicago violence code word for black people, they don't consider those people mentally ill and try to suggest treatment or help for them. Like he said, we've seen it over and over again in the mainstream mayo mass media. Thugs, violent criminals, this, that, and third. They don't care why they're doing what they're doing, which the most part, a lot of that is because of economic deprivation and things of that nature. I'm not saying all of it, but a large part of that is. And see, the other thing too, when they mention cities like Philadelphia, Chicago, et cetera, anytime something violent happens, it's immediately black folks. They just forget that it's white people committing these same types of crimes, but no, just put it all on black people. Yeah. So I'm glad that he pointed that part out. See, I'm going to give him a reason to be angry about this series over tonight. Let's let it continue.
purpose is just to be part of a gang and to engage in this violence for the sake of what exactly?
In reality, to the people who commit these crimes, their shootings have a clear purpose. These individuals are killing for respect or revenge or to protect territory. It's a competition for dominance. They're attempting to establish a social order that they believe is correct for some reason or another. Is that motivated by mental illness? No. The Ku Klux Klan sure committed a lot of mass killings of Black Americans in the name of white supremacy. There's over 4,000 documented cases of murder by the group. I don't think anyone would seriously attribute those actions to mental illness. Of course, there's plenty of examples of people killing many individuals due to love triangles, or because an argument becomes violent, or because it's part of another crime like a bank robbery. We don't typically excuse away that behavior as mental illness if someone has been to a psychiatric hospital before. And after 9/11, we saw an increase in mass shootings committed by Islamic extremists in the US. Do we ever look at those people and say, maybe this could have been prevented if they'd gotten proper mental health treatment? No, we chalk it up to terrorism, talk about how the person was inspired by or connected to other terrorist groups, and we move on.
The massacre in San Bernardino was an act of foreign-inspired terrorism.
The truth is that you can be completely sane and still engage in gruesomely violent acts. But you might look at those examples and say, well, yeah, but these mass shooters are different. You know, the ones that shoot up elementary schools or Walmarts or nightclubs. The narrative that we hear is that these folks are lone wolves whose actions seem impulsive and random.
Now let's deal with that lone wolf term, because see, I know why they are always throwing that lone wolf term around. But see, anytime a black person does something in America, oh, it's all niggers are guilty. Oh, the niggers, what's wrong with the blacks? Okay, you know, they call it blacks. But when their community does something, an individual or some of them, oh, they're lone wolves. You know why? Because, oh no, don't damage that pristine white image of white is always clean and pure and innocent. Put them to the side and make them a lone wolf. No. Because see, here's the problem with the lone wolf cop-out excuse, okay? There's too many lone wolves out there. When you have all of those wolves running around, that's a damn pack. That's indicative of a problem in your community, Alabaster America. So your little lone wolf trope that you keep throwing out there, nope. There's not no such thing as that many lone wolves out there in the world. That's a pack. Let's let it continue.
That kind of disorganized behavior and directionless aggression could only come from someone with a mental illness, right? Well, listen. I work with people every day who are diagnosed with mental illnesses. They've got depression, social anxiety, OCD, PTSD, eating disorders, you name it. And I work with a lot of other therapists who also see lots of clients with mental illnesses. Want to know how many of them are aggressive and dangerous to others? Pretty much none. I
want to take the time to point something out that he mentioned too, and I'm glad that he said this. For anybody, okay, anybody listen to this broadcast, if you're someone that's dealing with depression, okay, because that's a normal part of human emotion as well. I'm gonna give you a point on how you deal with that. Well, with us, it might work a little different. One, get yourself some sunlight, but in addition to that, vitamin B12, okay? Go and look up the health benefits of vitamin B12. You suffer from depression, you need to get your vitamin B12 uptake upgraded there, okay? Get that in you. That will definitely help you manage that. In addition to that, be active, be doing something, okay? Whatever you're dealing with, man, as far as some type of depression, let your solution to any problem be something constructive, not destructive, okay? Now, most of us in the audience here, black folks, we understand that, but I'm going to put that in there for some that might be listening to this, because I know they listen. They're always over here in our spaces. That's what you need to do, okay? Start looking at what you need to do to fix things. If you're looking at external to fix any type of depression issue, you really not ever going to get that solved. That has to be solved from within, okay? You can get encouragement externally, but you're the one that's going to have to do the work to take care of that. Let's let them continue.
Everyone knows someone with a mental illness. A friend, a coworker, a family member. It's a medical issue caused by a lot of different factors that could affect literally anyone. My wife, Allie, has a mental illness. She's talked about it before on this channel. You might have a mental illness, just like 45 million other Americans. That's more than 1 in 5 American adults living with a mental illness of some kind. Given how big of a group that is, it's pretty upsetting and also kind of absurd to see people make stigmatizing statements like people with mental illnesses are dangerous. But of course, when mental illness comes up in the context of mass shootings, our minds don't usually go to the people who we know. Now, it goes to the homeless guy who's yelling at cars passing by, or the person who's involuntarily hospitalized because they had a psychotic episode, or the kind of person who you cross the street to avoid. We focus on a small minority of people that are seriously mentally ill, like folks with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Is there any basis for this? Well, when we look at the data, evidence shows that people with mental illnesses overall are no more likely to perpetrate violence compared to the general population. However, there is data that shows that people with severe mental illnesses like major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and schizoaffective disorder are slightly more likely to commit acts of violence. About 0.8 of the general public commits violent acts in a 4-year period, while 2.9% of people with serious mental illnesses do in that same amount of time. That percentage is almost 4 times as high, but it also shows that most people with severe mental illnesses are overwhelmingly not violent. The likelihood that you will be killed by someone with schizophrenia is only 1 in 144,000. So you're actually 13 times more likely to die in a mass shooting than by someone with schizophrenia, at least if you're an American. Given how small those numbers are, we can perhaps say that there is a correlation between serious mental illness and violence, but not causation. Symptoms like long-standing paranoia or command hallucinations or delusions of grandeur or antisocial tendencies might contribute to violent behavior, but it's just as likely that this increase in violence and of the person's symptoms are caused by external life factors that are also known to increase the potential for committing violent acts, which also happen to affect people with serious mental illnesses at much higher rates. These include things like not having a job or a home or stable income, being alienated or isolated from loved ones or the community, having an addiction, or being the victim of violence. And that
Now, according to all of those things, if that's the criteria for being mentally ill and violently insane, then every person in Black America should be violently insane then, according to that, because we've been deprived of all of that by the dominant society systematically, okay, in America. But according to the system of white supremacy, you can look at it and see how we've been deprived of all of those things, okay? And they love to tell us, pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. Okay, so when you do that, as a Black person in America, what's the first thing they want to tell you? Oh, it's DI did. You know, that's the excuse they're using today, or affirmative action. When you really look at who that benefits, it's not Black people. It's white women first and foremost. And then you got the white LGBTQ, the white adjacent people, the white Hispanics, Arabs, East Indians, etc. Black people don't benefit from no damn affirmative action or no DEI, okay? So I just wanted to take the time to point that part out there, because see, if we're going by what he was saying, and I agree with what he's saying so far, then hey, why don't you see Black America with the highest numbers of mass shootings? You see what I'm saying? See, the truth, man, when you hit these people with the truth, man, that breaks apart all the gaslighting and lying that they ever try to do, though. Let's let it continue.
Next one is a well-studied fact. People with mental illnesses are far more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. Men who are diagnosed with a mental illness are 76% more likely to be the victim of a violent crime than those who have not been diagnosed. And women with mental illnesses are 300% more at risk. The truth is that less than 5% of violent crimes are committed by people with severe mental illness. That's not negligible, but it pales in comparison to the 95% of violent crime committed by everybody else. Now, I'm not trying to convince you that mental illness never plays a role in mass shootings. I imagine that some of you might point to the University of Texas tower shooter of 1966, who left a suicide note asking for an autopsy because he was experiencing unusual and irrational thoughts. The autopsy...
As you remember, I covered that particular incident in an earlier Children of the Chalk series here. You can see the playlist for that.
Autopsy revealed a small tumor that might have affected his ability to control his thoughts and emotions. But also, a commission of scientists stated that the relationship between the brain tumor and his actions could not be established with clarity. Regardless, one study found that symptoms of psychosis, which include delusions, hallucinations, and cognitive symptoms like being confused, disturbed, or having disrupted thought patterns, were more common among mass shooters than the general population, and likely played a major role in about 10.5% of mass shootings. These are the kinds of individuals who might qualify for the insanity defense, which is the standard used in the American legal system to decide whether a person should not be held responsible for their crimes because they were legally insane at the time that the crime was committed. The insanity defense is pretty difficult to argue without sufficient evidence that the person didn't understand the nature of their actions. Only 1% of criminal cases attempt to use it, and only 26% of those are successful. And looking at past cases, it is very uncommon for mass shooters to successfully claim the insanity defense. But I will concede that there are some outliers where mental illness plays a role in influencing a person's actions. Some. But this conclusion leads us to an uncomfortable truth. which is that all but a few mass shootings were not the consequence of mental illness. So, why would a sane person commit such an act?
Lone actors are continuing to plan and carry out devastating attacks.
Police say he was motivated by racist hatred and white supremacist views.
The shooter had a patch on his clothing that said RWDS. They believe that stands for Right-Wing Death Squad.
Potential ties to neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups.
There was simply no reasonable explanation or excuse, they said, for what he did.
As an individual who was described as a lone wolf, I don't know how it could have been prevented.
Remember earlier how I referred to the media narrative that these shooters are lone wolves whose reckless violence seemed disorganized and impulsive and random? Well, it turns out that that's not true at all. In most cases, these shootings are planned in advance, directed at someone or something specific, and carried out deliberately. The Columbine.
And now he's getting to what the heart of the issue is with the greater majority of these white supremacist mass shootings. Let's call it what it is. Remember, the Buffalo mass murdering terrorist Peyton Gendron, he was in contact with an FBI agent, with a federal agent. And you know they never released the name of that federal agent either. Remember that? Yeah, see, we keep up with all of it over here in New Black Media. Just want to take time to point that out, because now he's getting to what the heart of the real issue is. It's white supremacy and the coddling of white supremacy. Let it continue.
Shooters started planning their shooting spree a year in advance as an act of revenge against other students and teachers who they'd felt had wronged them. The Las Vegas shooter, the deadliest mass shooter in American history, had a year-long buying spree of firearms and ammunition. He carefully researched police tactics and response, and he scoped out the area multiple times to figure out how to inflict the most damage. The Buffalo shooter's ideas and methods were nurtured through toxic online communities. He wrote down detailed notes and plans for months on Discord, and sections of his manifesto were directly lifted from the Christchurch shooter's writings. These people knew what they were doing, and they made a conscious choice to act. You want to know why people commit heinous crimes like these? We know the motives. They include employment issues, interpersonal conflicts, relationship issues, legal issues, economic issues, racism or xenophobia, fame seeking, religious hate, misogyny, homophobia. When you boil it down, people commit mass shootings for two general reasons: because of a personal grievance or because of radical ideology.
Salute to the good Sister Sam Ham, and I'm gonna add salute to her for the cash update. Salute to you, Sister Sam Ham. But I'm gonna add a third one too that he left out. In addition to those two things that he just named, that's the reason why some of them commit mass shootings. The third one would be just absolute weakness. Just absolute weakness. Think about it. When you're in a system designed to give you everything that you don't earn, and the minute that something doesn't go your way, whether it's in your personal life or something in society that you feel like you should have and you can't get it, then you're too weak to deal with it. So now you want to take it out on other people. That's the third one that he should have brought up. But don't worry, I'll thread that needle for him. Let's let it continue.
Sometimes both. If you want to understand the mental state of someone who commits a mass shooting, almost all of them experience deep feelings of anger or self-loathing that develop into externalized hate, resentment, and blame that drive these violent actions. This partially explains why mental illness gets dragged into these conversations. I think that a lot of politicians and media outlets and community members use it as an easy scapegoat so that we don't have to talk about the real difficult societal issues that perpetuate these crimes. Which issues, I hear you ask? Well, how about the rise of extremism in our country? Over the last 10 years, domestic terrorism incidents in the United States have increased by 357%. According to the Government Accountability Office and the Anti-Defamation League, 75% of domestic extremist-related killings over the past 10 years have been perpetuated by right-wing extremists, which include white supremacy, toxic masculinity, and anti-abortion extremists. 20% have been perpetuated by domestic Islamic extremists, and 4% have been perpetuated by left-wing extremists, which include anarchists and black nationalists. That's
Now you see, they just had to put black nationalists in there. No. You don't have any so-called black nationalist groups going around committing no type of domestic terrorism. No, you do not. They just keep trying to tell that lie. Okay, let's go here to prove that it's a lie, because you know you always have somebody from the alabaster community. Yeah, that is true, man. Okay. Think about it, family. With all of the militarized police gear and everything that they have, and they deployed that on black people with signs protesting, if there was any established so-called black nationalist groups running around committing acts of domestic terrorism, don't you think that would be nationwide news? They would be deploying every type of SWAT team and militarized hardware out to deal with that particular threat. You don't ever hear about it because it's not happening. Let's let it continue.
pretty wild that far-right extremists are killing more than 3 times as many people as domestic Islamic extremists. That means that, statistically speaking, terrorists in America look like young white men. Now, I know that might upset a lot of people watching this video right now. Race and politics are...
Oh, it'll only upset the white supremacists, but who cares? They need to have the truth put in front of them, and I'm glad that one of their own is telling the truth.
Sensitive topics, but know that I'm not trying to attack any one person or group. I really just want to have an open and honest conversation about these real issues without getting defensive and throwing up walls. I know that might still happen, but I wanted to say it anyway. Mass shooters often study other shooters or are part of radical groups online that validate, promote, and celebrate violence. This might include sites like 4chan, 8chan, or Telegram, or even platforms that you've used, like Reddit, Discord, or Facebook. They might watch OAN, or Newsmax, or white nationalist YouTuber Nick Fuentes, or any number of other figures that promote hateful or dangerous ideas, such as false flags, or the Great Replacement Theory, or the QAnon conspiracy. These theories, which are completely unsupported by any evidence, can encourage those feelings of fear, anger, and an us versus them mentality that can play such a large role in motivating extremist shooters. When you see the commonalities between many of these radicalized individuals, they end up looking more like inspired followers than lone wolves. Another major issue is the accessibility to firearms. Guns are efficient and effective weapons for committing mass violence. They result in higher numbers of fatalities compared to other weapons like knives or even explosives. When guns are readily available, committing mass shootings are easier to do. It's as simple as that. The United States is the country with the most civilian-held firearms. We're less than 5% of the world's population, but we account for 46% of global civilian gun ownership. It's estimated that there's 393 million guns in circulation in America. That's an average of 1.2 guns per person. The country with the next highest level of gun ownership is Yemen, with 0.5 guns per person. As of 2019, the US accounts for 73% of mass shootings. Among mass shooters, 77% of them purchased at least some of their guns legally. And for school shootings, over 80% of mass shooters stole guns from family members. It's clear that if you have reduced access to guns, then mass shootings become less common.
Let me go ahead and interject right here with this, because see, this is something that they all try to do. Instead of pointing the issue towards stopping your white supremacist domestic terrorists, they start trying to blame the guns. Let me tell you something, like the old saying goes, and yes, y'all know, I'm a strong, staunch advocate for the Second Amendment. Guns don't kill people. People kill people. Okay? Deranged, degenerate white supremacists with guns kill people. So let's just go here with this, because this is where he's going with this. Oh, there's too many guns. No. The greater majority of gun owners are not running around out here committing mass shootings. They're not. It's in your community that problem is mostly an issue here in America. And due to the coddling that the government does when it comes to dealing with that threat before they commit those acts of violence. But let's go here. Let's just say you want to get these, because you're never going to get this type of so-called gun control that they want here in America. That's just not going to happen. But let's just say they did do it some type of way. If a white supremacist degenerate wants to kill a large number of people, he tried to downplay the use of knives and bombs. But let me tell you something. They'll get started making bombs all over the place. Hell, they'll start making their own types of firearms. It's not that hard to construct your own firearm if you know what you're doing and you got access to metal shop equipment, okay? Let's just go ahead and get that out the way. The problem is them. It's not the guns themselves. I get so sick of people trying to pass the buck on that. No, until they start dealing with these threats, and like earlier in the broadcast, you heard this guy going on about his situation. They know where the problems are in their community. They know. And if they don't know, let me give you a tip, white America, how you could solve a greater majority of these white mass shootings that your people commit. If you employ the same amount of surveillance on your own community that you do ours, the Black American community, you would get your problem fixed overnight. Let's let it continue.
And of course, easy access to guns is the logical outcome of our country's loose gun control laws. I mean, regardless of your feelings about gun ownership, poor gun control plays a big role here. I mean, unlike car ownership, for example, there's no federal requirements to take a safety exam or get a license or have insurance. Despite the dangers of owning a gun, it's something that you can buy and legally own the same day. Just be 18 or older, fill out a form, and pass an instant background check. We can observe the effects of loosened gun control in action. I mean, when the federal assault weapons ban went into place in 1994, it limited the sale of certain kinds of weapons and banned high-capacity magazines. Mass shootings fell by 37%. But when the ban lapsed in 2004, there was a 183% increase in mass shootings and a 239% increase in mass shooting deaths. Today, even within the country, research shows that higher rates of mass shootings occur in states with more relaxed gun control laws. Again, the easier access you have to guns, the easier it is to act upon violent thoughts. And this doesn't even get into the conversation about gun violence generally. Mass shootings make up a tiny percentage of gun violence, as in like 1% or less. Suicides actually account for the majority of US gun deaths at around 54%. To be honest, while mass shootings get a lot more media coverage and have higher public interest, I probably should have made this video about gun violence and suicide, because the United States has an embarrassingly high rate of suicide by gun.
See, here they go with that projection again. See, look, that's another thing y'all got to learn about white supremacy, because you see where he's going with his gun violence speed. I'm letting him talk for a reason. Let me tell you something. What he just said, his community has the highest rate of suicide by gun. Black folks, with all the hell we've been through, the last thing in the world we think about is trying to take ourselves out. And when black people do commit self-deletion, suicide, whatever you want to call it, it's usually done by drug overdose or something of that nature. We don't be shooting ourselves and stuff like that. This is why when you hear about all those cases where you find a black person and it must have been a suicide, especially if it was a gunshot wound, or the way you remember during those last few years where they was finding black people strung up with like nooses around their necks. That's the last thing in the world a black person would think about if they were going to commit that act. So no, sir, put that where it belongs. Don't just say America. They always try to make their issues everybody else's issues. And see, that's a part of the gaslighting that they use in their community. What we have to start doing is knowing the facts on these things and say, hey, wait a minute. Just like we checking these tellers on saying, nope, you're going to be wherever you come from when you do something degenerate. We got to hit them when they start trying to lump us in with everybody. Your community is the one that suffers from this the most. Our people don't do that. So that's something else we're going to have to tighten up on. Let's let it continue.
It's an epidemic. In any case, it's been the trend among conservative politicians and media to distract from issues around guns and right-wing ideology, in part because they implicate the kinds of policies and rhetoric that modern conservatism tends to promote. This includes gun ownership, anti-government sentiments, devaluing racial minorities or LGBTQ+ members, and prioritizing Christian dogma. So rather than engaging in honest self-reflection, we end up pointing our fingers and say, look at the weird bad people. Whatever can we do? You can't fix crazy. Thoughts and prayers. There's no way to prevent this, says only nation where this regularly happens.
There are 19 sets of parents who are never going to get to kiss their child goodnight again.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
You know, it's easy to go to politics.
Banning those weapons that were used in attacks like these.
I'm certain that politics will wave into everything, but right now I'm not focused on the politics of the situation. I'm focused on the families.
With so much violence taking place at the hands of those with severe mental illness, the answer to mass shootings is not fewer guns, but it's more institutional mental health in this country.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are all domestic terrorists.
But we can do something. There are reasonable steps that we can take as a country to significantly reduce the number of mass shootings. These include, for example, stricter gun laws in order to restrict access to firearms.
Let me go ahead and deal with this line, because you can tell, yes, he's got to be a liberal talking like this. Stricter gun laws, sir. Let me address you and all of you white liberals that use that stricter gun law crap. And let me go ahead and say, give my disclaimer. I'm not liberal nor conservative. My loyalty is to Black America. That's what my designation is, okay? If you have to call me anything, I'm politically independent. Let me deal with this whole stricter gun laws. If anybody, mostly in your community, wants to commit a mass shooting, a law on a piece of paper is not going to stop them. That's why that's DOA, dead on arrival, pun intended. Let it continue.
Evidence shows that more thorough background checks, waiting periods, and gun buyback programs are effective in reducing rates of gun violence, including mass shootings.
Here's the problem with that too, sir, because see, like Peyton Gendron was in contact with that federal agent whose name they won't release. All they have to do is use that $1 million worth of whiteness to get someone in the community that has access to those guns to give them those things. They don't have to go through legal channels to get that. Strike two. Let's let them continue.
There are other common sense gun laws that might also help, including reinstating the assault weapons ban, banning high-capacity magazines or bump stocks, requiring training, insurance, and registration of firearms.
Strike number 3, people can make and manufacture those things themselves today. So even if you tried to put an assault weapons ban back in place, and you got some people that afford that, just know that those things can easily be engineered at home if you know what you're doing. So that's strike number 3. Let's let them continue.
Or raising the federal age limit for buying firearms. When it comes to extremism, evidence shows that informal interventions by family and friends are one of the most effective ways to interrupt violent radicalization. Of course, that puts a lot of emphasis and responsibility on individuals, but it's important to know where we hold power to make a difference. On a larger scale, de-radicalization will require deconstructing and delegitimizing extremist far-right propaganda, both online and elsewhere. Social media companies have, thus far, evaded government oversight, and also taking responsibility for providing a platform for hateful and extremist views. If companies had more of an incentive to moderate their content, that might lead to fewer individuals being exposed to hate speech and radical ideology. There are also things that we know won't work. Arming teachers or adding police to schools will only increase the likelihood of gun violence in schools. And there have already been school shootings where all the right things were in place, like locked doors, school resource officers, and a quick and effective response by police, and lots of people still died. Additionally, things like harsh criminal sentences don't really do much to stop mass shooters, since most of them are suicidal and they don't plan to live past the event. What we really need to do is invest in resources and social services that can improve the lives and well-being of Americans. We need a more comprehensive social safety net so people can support themselves and their families without entering into a crisis every time that they lose their job or become involved in the legal system. We need to invest in our schools to help our kids thrive, give them access to mental health services. We need to ensure that people can afford health care. If we can create a society where people's basic needs are met and where they feel like they're part of a community and are connected to other people, we go a long way towards eradicating those hateful, angry, scared thoughts that lead to so many mass shootings. Funnily enough, and this may seem a bit at odds with the point of this video, I think that increasing funding for mental health care might have a beneficial effect. Our country's been—
You know what he didn't mention, family? Because I let him ramble on for a minute. Let me tell you what drastically decreased the number of mass shootings in America. I'm going to get straight to the point and say something that I'll be surprised if we ever see those in the dominant society do this. Criminalize white supremacist terrorism. Criminalize it. Germany did the same thing with Nazism. Why doesn't America follow suit with criminalizing white supremacy here? I'll tell you why. Because it's state sanctioned. They know that if they criminalize white supremacy, that means they got to mass incarcerate their own people. They don't want to do that. Yeah, see, they know that. Look, the reason why they want to criminalize white supremacy here, because they know it's in every level of society. It's in all their homes. They teach it. They pass it down like a family heirloom. And for a lot of them try to argue, and those of us in New Black Media and a lot of you in the chat room and on many other platforms say that. But see, I can prove it. It's very easily proven. The mere fact that you have monuments, idols, statues, and buildings named after white supremacist slave masters, Ku Klux Klansmen, Nathan Bedford Forrest, and so on, that proves that you pass this stuff down. That's why you can't get rid of the white supremacy problem in America. Notice he turned back to that mental illness crap. No, go to the source of the problem. Criminalize white supremacy. Then you'll get the greater majority of that issue solved. Let it continue.
Mental health infrastructure is embarrassingly bad due to the dismantling of psychiatric hospitals and the underfunding of community-based services. I actually talked about both of those things at length in a video about asylums. You can click on the link up there if you want to watch that. Mental illness may not be the motive or cause of most mass shootings, but we do see that most mass shooters experience a life crisis that affects their mental health. If mental health services were better integrated into our communities and were more accessible, that could reduce the stigma of seeking out help. And in turn, it could improve mental health for everyone, not just the seriously mentally ill. I think that we all understand the importance of mental health and the role that it plays in living a satisfying and fulfilled life. And if you, watching this video, are personally trying to improve your own mental health, then I'd recommend exercising your mind and enhancing your cognitive skills with Brilliant.org. Yeah, it's a bad segue, but hear me out. I wouldn't have been able to do this video justice if I didn't understand statistics. Numbers can easily fool you. And I didn't realize how often I was getting tricked by exciting headlines in the news until I took a stats class in college. But if you've never taken stats, then you need to check out Brilliant. It's the best way to learn math and computer science because they have thousands of lessons on all sorts of topics like AI, neural networks, data science, and a whole lot more. They've even got a lesson all about retirement. In particular though, I think you should check out their statistics and probability lessons. I wish that I'd had classes like these because they make learning complex topics super fun with their easy and interactive questions. I mean, just look at this lesson on probabilities. He's making little jokes about Marvel characters. Anyway, it's a great place to learn new skills or even just to challenge yourself. So to try everything Brilliant has to offer, free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/neurotransmissions or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off of Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Thank you for checking them out, and thank you to Brilliant for supporting creators like me so that I can make videos like these. So let me repeat again. Mental illness is not a motive for someone to commit a mass shooting. It's pretty clear that the person who pulls the trigger probably isn't living a fulfilled life. But remember that just because we don't understand an evil act doesn't mean that that person is mentally ill. Or even if they are, I mean, that doesn't mean that every action is connected to that diagnosis. Rather than using mental illness as an easy excuse, let's really encourage changes that'll have a substantial impact. For example, I strongly urge you to contact your legislators to ask them to enact common sense gun laws. And I look forward to continuing the conversation in the comments below. I really want to hear from you. What do you think? What's going on? What can we do? Thanks so much for watching. And until next time, I'm Micah. Think about it.
Well, Micah, I'll tell you what you can do. You can have people contact their local legislators and representatives to enforce criminalizing white supremacy. You didn't mention that part in your diatribe there. I let him dribble on for a reason. And that site that he actually mentioned, that's actually a very good site. It has a lot of good, intelligent exercises on that site. So I left that in there for a reason. But the good brother Amir L pointed out something very important. And a lot of you probably caught that. And like we always know, white supremacy takes both sides of an argument. The brother Amir L says, wasn't he just saying it wasn't a mental health issue? He definitely was. And then he flips back right around and starts trying to make it about mental health. See, they're duplicitous. They're fork-tongued serpents. And I'm going to tell you again, y'all heard me say it many times. I'm going to tell you like my grandparents told me, if their little pink thin lips are moving, they're lying. They take both sides of an argument. And see, this is why they can't really solve the greater majority of their issues. Because if you're trying to solve a problem, you can't be half for solving it and half for not solving it. You got to be all the way for solving it, or you just not going to do anything about it. It's just that simple. So I brought this broadcast to you here tonight, family, in hopes that it would enlighten some of you on the mindset that they have and the issues and problems that they have in their community that have become a nationwide problem. Okay. And regardless of what they got going on, or regardless of how they're not going to produce justice, I'm going to leave you all with this message. Protect yourselves and your families at all times, regardless of what they do or do not do. But that said, thank you to everybody that contributed here to the broadcast tonight. Be looking for the upcoming broadcast on this channel, and be looking out for the broadcast I'm going to have on Patreon soon, putting that together. So, and continue to enjoy your weekend. Stay empowered. Remember, we are a mighty people when we're on code, and there's nothing we can't accomplish. That's it. Salute to you, Black First, and I will see you all in future content.
This is the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, and we still have a lot of discrepancies as far as the origins of hip-hop, a lot of claims, who did what, who was the first this, who was the this and that, and such. But at the end of the day, we need a definitive story, all right? And that story can only be told by the founders of this culture.
Like everything was being driven and influenced by young, Black, American culture, like the slang, the style of dress, the initial music that we chose.
You look at all the boroughs, you got, Money Making Manhattan and Money Earning Mount Vernon and Crooklyn. The Bronx was the boogie down Bronx. We was partying up there.
I am Coke LaRock, the first MC of hip hop. First cat to pick the mic up.
I introduced rapping to the turntable because when I came with it, nobody in the world was doing it. I'm right after Rudy Ray Moore.
They want to come in the mix, they want to say, we started. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. What came to be known as hip hop was solely an African-American creation.
What would you get out of some Jamaican toast? What is that? I've never heard of a rapper use a Jamaican toast or a Jamaican fleur as a rhyme. I never heard of it, and I don't know where that myth came from.
My name is legendary King Trixie from the Bronx, BX from the West Side. I am the first break dancer.
And that narrative that hip hop has had 3 founding fathers, that's been rolling for the last almost 30 years, which isn't true. You don't have just 3 people who created hip hop. Hip hop was created by a number of different people.
I am the grandfather, the godfather of the graffiti culture. I am the first element of hip hop.
The roots of hip hop being Jamaican, absolutely false.
My name is MC Sha-Rock. I am a founding member of the MC/rap culture.
Cassette tapes was the internet of our time. It just traveled around by hand.
I know for a fact that the B-boy stand started from the guards, the 5%ers that would be at the jams back in the days who were acting as security.
If they get the real truth of how it all was created, then so many lies would not be able to be in existence.